Welcome to Co-Side Poetry. Thanks to those of you who've zoomed in and those who are watching on YouTube. We meet either physically or virtually on the second Tuesday of every month to celebrate spoken poetry. I'm Diane Moomey, and Steve Long and I are your hosts this evening. Our featured poet event is being recorded and streamed live onto YouTube as we speak. So anyone can look at it later. We'll be posting the link on our website, coastsidepoetry.org. This evening, we welcome popular San Francisco poet Kathleen McClung. Kathleen is the author of 4 poetry collections: A Juror Must Fold In on Herself, winner of the 2020 Rattle Chapbook Prize, Temporary Kin, The Typists Play Monopoly, and Almost the Rowboat. Winner of the Morton Marr, Maria W. Faust, and Rita Dove National Poetry Prizes, her work appears in a variety of journals and anthologies. In 2021, she serves as guest editor for the MacGuffin, a print literary journal based in Michigan. She is associate director of the Soul-Making Keats literary competition and judges the contest sonnet category. In 2018 and 19, she was a writer in residence at Friends of the San Francisco Public Library. Kathleen teaches literature and writing classes at Skyline College in San Bruno and directed the Women on Writing Conference there for 10 years. You can visit her at her website, KathleenMcClung.com. And now please welcome Kathleen McClung.
Thank you very much, Diane and Steve, and thank you everybody for coming out to the Zoom this evening. It's wonderful to see your faces. I was saying to Diane and Steve, this is the first Zoom I've done in about 2 weeks, and I'm so happy to be back on Zoom after a little time away. During my little time away, I took a trip. I traveled with my partner Tom to the East Coast. We went to New York City and to Philadelphia and had just an absolutely wonderful time. And it was our first journey outside of California in a year and a half. And I'm going to start tonight with 2 pretty new poems that haven't been published. I would call them some of my pandemic poems. This first poem I wrote in the spring, I think in about April or May, when I was longing to travel, just longing. So this poem is a villanelle, and it's called Wanderlust, Spring 2021. I long to linger in a terminal, among the crowds who go, the staff who stay, the flow and ebb. I miss the logical procedures, ID, boarding pass, shuffle slow through security. I miss delays that make me linger on a terminal bar stool, fork over almost criminal amounts for snacks, for ho-hum Cabernet that flows or ebbs. I miss the logical and thrifty travelers who ferry small ham sandwiches from home, Ziploc buffet, for while they linger in a terminal. I miss retirees in whimsical t-shirts and Bluetooth heads in new toupees. The flow and ebb, absurd or logical, it doesn't matter which. I miss it all. I ache to fly. Confined 500 days, I long to linger in a terminal, feel flow, feel ebb, departures, arrivals. Thank you. The second poem I'm going to read is a cento, and I love writing centos. I love teaching cento writing. And as you know, a cento is a poem composed entirely of lines from another poet. And I would say that Emily Dickinson is probably my favorite poet. A few weeks ago, I wrote this poem, which I'm calling Escape and Curve, a pandemic cento for Emily Dickinson. The soul has moments of escape, bright Wednesday afternoons. Their summer lasts a solid year, and centuries of August cease. This whole experiment of green cannot perish, though it fail to comprehend a nectar. Nature was in an opal apron. A breathing woman, as covert as a fugitive, I read my sentence steadily. I do not need a light. The brain has corridors, surpassing all forests, stintless stars, the pleading of the summer. Curve by curve, sweep by sweep, I envy spokes of wheels, the wagons quickened on the streets, further than guests can gallop. How out of breath you are. The next poem I'd like to read is a sonnet. I write a lot of sonnets, and I love judging the sonnet category of the Soul-Making Keats contest. This particular sonnet is called Sand and Sleep, and it comes from a sequence of sonnets I wrote about my partner Tom's experience undergoing brain surgery several years ago. And I'm just going to read this one sonnet. And I chose to read this one tonight, partly because it mentions the Olympics, and I've just finished watching quite a lot of the Olympics on television. So this is Sand and Sleep. We can repair a fraction of what breaks in bodies, homes, and avenues. The beach volleyball Olympian still aches from her 5th shoulder surgery. Yet each day she returns to sand and spikes the ball with all her might. Another woman sleeps surrounded by her plastic bags and solitude outside the liquor store. She keeps her yellow raincoat on. When Tom says hi to her today, 4 weeks post-op, offers our bag of bagels, she does not reply. A stenopad lies on her lap. Do words on those faint aqua lines bring peace? We walk, not briskly, Tom and I, toward home, a few more blocks. The next 2 poems I'm going to read come from my chapbook, A Juror Must Fold In on Herself, which, as Diane mentioned, I was thrilled to win the Rattle Chapbook Prize in 2020. And I would honestly say that was the very best thing that happened for me in 2020, was winning that prize. Some of you may know I served as a jury forewoman on a case, a vehicular manslaughter case, 3 years ago during the summer. And the trial involved the death of a small child. And it was a very, very difficult experience to serve on that jury. So I'm going to read a double sonnet from the chapbook called The Quietist. The quietist He sat apart from us 11, wrangling long paragraphs of guilt or innocence. I wondered, was this man that student in the back who laughs at random intervals, evades a teacher's gaze, and doodles skulls? We were a jury, not a class, that endless week. Those August days, we scrutinized dim video and thought out loud about our negligence, our pure dumb luck behind the wheel. We hadn't killed a child, but one had bled to death, and we were stuck inside that bolted room, unreconciled and tense. At last, the quietist cut through our fog. A sort of Solomon, he knew our fog. A sort of Solomon, he knew. So when he, sotto voce, spoke, we fell silent. Enough of scribbled notes on blue-lined steno pads. Enough of almost yelling, weeping, sword fighting. We could agree at last, go home, begin to sleep at night again, peel back thick layers of secrecy we'd worn all through this trial. I thought I might bump into one or two. Our city's small, ripe for coincidence. Last week, nearby, a crowded diner, loud hole in the wall, I elbowed Tom. Look, there's the jury guy. Quick nods, rueful hellos, but we did not discuss. The quietest, he sat apart from us. Thank you. I'm going to read one other poem from this chapbook. I wrote a sequence of poems in the voice of a sequestered juror. And I was not sequestered during our trial, but I got to wondering, as I was working on the other poems, what would it be like to be a sequestered juror? You know, like people in the O.J. Simpson trial and the Bill Cosby trial and a lot of those very high profile trials, the jurors are put up in a hotel away from their family and friends. And I just got to thinking, what would that be like? So I wrote a sequence of poems in the voice of a sequestered juror. And this one I'm going to read, I'm really thrilled, was nominated for a Pushcart Prize. And who knows, might win, we'll see. It's called The Sequestered Juror Writes a Sestina. Luckily, you knit. You finished the first sleeve yesterday. Wool almost as soft as Allegria's fur, rose red. No needles allowed in the metal detector. You take them into court only in your mind. And yarn. Now, here, your clicking's a jig in this pub of one. This room overlooking someone's Mercedes, main plates, a long way from home. What distance to a verdict? Long or unbearable? The OJ jury in custody 265 days. You remember white Ford Bronco, tight black glove. No one forgets. Then quarters plinked in yellow boxes, and you read testimony in narrow columns of print every morning. Now you are forbidden from reading, forbidden from any talk of this trial. For good measure, all your talk, your mail, monitored. A deputy sits in the long corridor, plays video games, his yes audible every now and then. You have begun counting nights and days, the way you count cars, 8 blue, 3 red, 6 silver, or words per line, 9 plus 1 extra here and there. You see yourself as someone who'll be a champion deliberator, someone who'll take her time, weigh evidence on a sturdy scale, reread notes in her stenopad aloud, only humor long-winded men for a little while, not all day. But you're nowhere near that conference table yet. Now you have an armada of pillows, coffee from pods. Now you knit a sleeve. Remember, the dream team won. OJ went free. Imagine the 12 that October Monday. Imagine their exhaustion. They're bursting like volcanoes to talk at last, lift their voices again after so long. Did they get drunk after their verdict was read? Did they leave car keys with valets in red jackets, dance like dervishes, spinning in dark nightclubs now defunct? Or did they instead embark on impossibly long hikes in the San Gabriels, looking for the one sacred hawk or wolf or moth that would take everything, carry everything away? You finished a sleeve yesterday, a small one, rose red, for a newborn. More must take shape from your long skeins, your clicks. From these sequestered days, you are counting now. I hope I have time for maybe 2 more, Diane. Is that kosher? Okay, great. I'm going to read 2 more poems from my chapbook, Temporary Kin, which came out last year in 2020 from Barefoot Muse Press. And I'm delighted to share Barefoot Muse Press with our host, Diane Moomey, who has a brand new chapbook coming from Barefoot Muse as well. And it was a delight to work with our publisher, Anna Evans. And so I'm going to read probably 2 villanelles. As I mentioned, I've been a teacher for over 30 years. And this is a persona poem that I wrote after reading an obituary of a woman who had been a teacher. This poem is called Imagining Mrs. R, who died at 114, according to her obituary. My husband died in 1963. He sold insurance, auto, fire, life. Before we met, I taught geometry, nursed ginger ales in Newark speakeasies. Bent-elbowed friends recruited me to drive. My husband died in 1963, his second heart attack, and Kennedy was shot. The black convertible, as if a knife, bisected Dallas sky. I had taught geometry, chalked arcs and angles, spheres and symmetry, but axioms dissolved when I became a wife. My husband's death in 1963 did little to resuscitate the free thinker I'd been. Arthritis would arrive before too long. I'd loved geometry and Chaplin's silent films, Rudy Valley. I knew each verse by heart as time goes by. My husband died in 1963. Before we met, I loved geometry. Thank you. And I'm going to end with one more villanelle. I wrote this poem one winter near my office in San Francisco. I was waiting to cross the street, waiting for the light to change. And I glanced over and kind of overheard this conversation between a mother and her teenage son. So this poem is called For the Young Man Unimpressed with the Sky. It's just the moon, he shrugs, blasé, this teen. His mother, stirred like me, does not agree. We strangers gaze, transfixed. The light turns green as we step off the curb and walk between these yellow lines. Familiar mystery. It's just the moon, of course, but full. We've seen its sliver in the sky, known its routine each month, a moving toward immensity. We strangers gaze in awe. The light turns green. 6th Avenue seems safe to cross if screens are off in every car. No guarantee. It's just the moon, just solstice. No machine that waits for us to cross can ever mean what full moon in a winter sky does. Constancy. We strangers gaze, grateful for light, for green, for seasons, cycles, wheels that spin unseen far longer than our brief mortality. It's just the moon. You're right. You're 17. We strangers praise it though. The light turns green. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Kathleen. Oh, am I frozen or not? Thank you. I'm going to suggest that people unmute themselves and, share reactions with Kathleen. Just such beauty, Kathleen. Your words are they just weave these tapestries. Each poem is like a tapestry woven of your words.
They truly transport me.
I'm kind of in awe of your ability to work in form and make it sound so natural, especially villanelle. I think villanelle is really hard, and I really admire your ability to make it seem natural and beautiful and stay within the form.
Thank you.
Kudos.
Thank you.
Yes.
I think I may have heard you once before a long time ago at one of the WOW conferences because my wife worked at Skyline College. So this is the first time and I am, as everybody else, thoroughly impressed. Now I'm like scrambling. Okay, what am I going to read? Used to be this, but
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And I see
Wonderful.
several people from the WOW conference here. Several people. Eileen Malone was one of our WOW keynoters a few years ago. So thanks for being here, Eileen. And Ellen Woods has been a WOW stalwart over the years, has helped volunteer and has read during the open mic at WOW. So thanks for being here, Ellen. And I think we have some other WOW folks here too. So thanks for Diane's been a WOW person as well. I really love the WOW event, and so great. I'm so happy to know that your wife works at Skyline. That's great.
She did. She's retired, but I'm sure you knew her at the time, Barbara Daly.
Oh, great. Yes. Oh, wonderful. Give her my best.
I will do so.
Well, I just love your I don't know, sensibility, wit, just about daily life and the most mundane things that and the way that you know that someone might be thinking about. I just love it. Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much,
I
Abby.
have fun all the time.
Thank you.
Kathleen, I really enjoy Villanelle myself, Dave. And you do it so masterfully and so wonderfully. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's music to my ears. Thank you very much, Dave.
Well, I have loved your poetry for so long, Kathleen. And I just want to say tonight I was really struck by how you read and the space that you allow for the words to penetrate the listeners. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yes.
I'm so glad you're here, Ellen. Wonderful. And congrats to you, Ellen, on your new book coming out. I'm so pleased to know that books are being generated by my friends and colleagues and people that I have worked with. So congratulations to you too, Ellen.
Yes, books are being born.
Yes, yes.
Yes, and you midwifed a lot of them, Kathleen. I have to say,
Oh,
would
thank
not,
you.
if not for you, I would never have sent that manuscript in.
That's really gratifying to hear. You know, I've had wonderful mentors over the course of my life, and I think it's just hugely important that we find people to mentor us and then pass it on. And so I hope everyone on this call is mentoring, you know, the poets in your life too. It's essential. It's really essential.
It is. I think that the arts are what's going to get us through this horrible
Oh yeah.
time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, not just poetry, but poetry is a big one.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's poems. So thank you all for being here. I'm
We
thrilled
certainly
to
hope so.
listen to you. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Kathleen. We'll stop recording in a moment.
You're frozen.
Oh, what?
Those of you in the Zoom room, please stay online if you'd like to take for our next regular Coast Side Poetry event on Tuesday, September 14th, when we'll welcome Pescadero poet Veronica Kornberg. So that brings us to the end of tonight's recorded program. Thanks so much for joining us at Coast Side Poetry and for helping to keep the lamps of poetry burning.